If we don't believe that God's power is relevant today, why? What is the trace of that? Is it doctrinal or is it experiential? Have we stopped believing because of a scripture, or have we stopped believing because of a disappointment? Because we will look at the world and condemn them for deconstruction when the church has been deconstructing for years. But it might not have been about salvation.
Yeah.
It might have been about healing. We've been deconstructing for years, but it might not have been about salvation. It might have been about deliverance.
Yeah.
That we decided because of a disappointment that something about God was no longer true.
And because of misuse.
Yes, 100%. But if your offenses change the premise of who God is, then who's God? If his character is determined by your experiences, then you are God and he's not.
Jesus.
And so, to me, I understand the grief of praying for someone to be healed, and it doesn't happen in the way that you desire. I understand that grief very deeply. I've experienced that on multiple occasions. But that experience didn't break my faith for the power of God. It deepened my conviction.
Yeah.
It deepened my conviction of its power. And it wasn't because the result went in my favor, but it's because I came to an internal resolve that just because my circumstance doesn't look like who Jesus said he is and what he can do, it doesn't mean that it isn't who he is. And my discontentment, my frustration, my disappointment doesn't have to become a premise of deconstruction. Why? Most of us would have said that Mary and Martha deconstructed outside of the tomb of Lazarus. If you only take the sentence that they said, that would sound like the foundational point of many people's walking away from the faith. Lord, if you had been there, my brother wouldn't have died. Most people stop there. But the truth is, the statement they were making was actually a statement of faith. But what we've got to pay attention to is the difference in how he responded to the two. He gave Martha a theological response. When Mary said it, he said, show me where you laid him. Which means that both people were responding with frustration about their circumstance, but God reacted to both of those things differently. Neither one of them stepped away from God. Both of them got something from God in that moment, right? But if you just take the sentence, you're like, oh, I've said that. God, if you were real, this wouldn't have happened. God, if you were there, that wouldn't have happened, right? But that statement is not a statement of unbelief. It's a statement of faith. It's a conviction about what God's able to do. So why don't we separate our conviction from what God is able to do from our disappointment about what didn't happen? Is it possible to believe that God can do something and be disappointed that it didn't happen without surrendering the belief? I believe that is the testing ground that much of our generation is in right now. Is that, can we steward disappointment well? Can we manage disappointment in a way that makes us the kind of people who will be anchored in the midst of storms? That'll make us the kind of people that will be anchored in the midst of persecution. The kind of people that'll be anchored in the midst of the winds tossing to and fro in our generation. The only way you can be a person who is unshaken in those moments is if you steward disappointment well. If you know how to respond to when you feel let down by something. When you know how to respond to believing God is able to do something and wrestling with the fact that it didn't happen. I believe that. And that's why so many healing ministers, they tell stories of hundreds of people they prayed for and didn't get healed before the power started breaking out. I don't understand it fully from a spiritual science perspective, but I do believe that God was training their heart to steward disappointment healthily. and to allow disappointment to teach them the right things about God instead of allowing the enemy to disciple their disappointment,
Yeah.
to teach them wrong things about God. Because this is the thing, the enemy is a theologian. Why else would the Bible say that there is such a thing as doctrines of demons if the enemy didn't have his own theology courses? What does that look like? It looks like interpreting the scripture in a way that is a witness against the character of God instead of a witness for. I'll break it down a little bit further. God didn't say, don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For the Lord knows that if you eat of it, you'll become like him, knowing good and evil. That was a lie, right? Except that after Adam and Eve ate, God said to himself, man has become like us, knowing good and evil. So what was the lie? Was it the information or was it the interpretation? The enemy will take true information and he will give it deceptive interpretation. So he'll take something real, and this is how he deceives us. He'll take something real and he'll interpret it in a way that gets us to believe something wrong about the character of God. Right? So he gives Adam and Eve true information. But what he does is he deceives them about what that information reveals about God's character. It gets them to believe that God's holding something back from them. Gets them to believe that God's trying to keep something from them. But in reality, he was protecting them. So they become deceived about God's character, which is why instead of going back to God to get clarity, they just went forward because a seed of distrust was established.